This week we have three models, 3.10, 2, 3, and 4. And as you can see, 2 depends from 1, 3 depends from 2, and 4 depends on 3. Basically what you're doing is building more detail into the more basic models to get a better picture of your project and its NPV. A common mistake that people have made in the past is that whenever they use the previous model to build the second one, which you're supposed to do, they don't look at the links between the cells in the formulas. So they end up referencing wrong inputs into their formulas, and in the end, for example, their net present value, which is supposed to be the same for all the models, actually not here, but it's not the same. It does not match the book, and they're often confused. Why? Because they said, well, I copied everything from the previous model and it should work according to the instructions of the book. But one thing that you need to be paying attention to is that as you go from, like, let's say 1 to 4, because this is a really obvious change, from model 1, the tax rate is 35%, and it's on cell C8, right? And then 2, again 35%, cell C8, and then 3, 35%, cell C8. But when we go to model 4, the rate is again 35%, but the cell is C11. This is it's one of the most obvious changes from what I could tell, that like if you go back to the bottom and they're still referencing your tax as cell C8, obviously you're going to get the wrong number, which in this case is 2%, so it's going to give you the wrong result. So as you insert cells for new inputs and new things to consider in your models, realize that your reference cells are going to change, and you need to relink your formulas to the right cells. So how do you do that, especially when here, for example, your tables are pretty long and it gets to a point where it's kind of hard to keep track of what's linked to what, right? Well, there's a couple of tricks. Obviously, if you understand what's behind all these numbers, then you're gonna make fewer mistakes. But in order to help you understand what's behind these numbers, since they're all like formulas that don't really necessarily mean much, especially if you don't label them accordingly, there are a couple things that you could do. If you go to formulas, for example, and you don't know where this net present value comes from, you can go to trace precedents, and then it will tell you where this number came from. It doesn't tell you that it tells you that it's a sum of these numbers. It's not always going to tell you what the formula is, but it's going to link you to the right inputs. So for example, I don't know what this formula refers to. I can do trace precedents, and I know that it involves this number and this number. If I want to add another one, trace precedents, and I know that it involves these two numbers. So it's a good way to keep track of where your numbers come from. You can also do trace dependence, and like what numbers depend on this 35%, and then you'll see that this number right here depends on this tax right here. So if you don't see very obvious connections between your cells, you can definitely draw the arrows to see where these numbers are coming from. We're going to remove the arrows now. Another good trick that actually I just learned a couple of days ago is the equation formula. It's supposed to be formula is in some versions, but my version is formula text. I would say in your version, just start typing up formula, and then it'll tell you if it's is or text. So it's really not that big of a deal. But anyway, so you do formula text for my version, and then open parentheses, and then I'm going to go to here. I want to know what that formula in that cell is. And oops, I get a not available or whatever, not applicable, because this is actually not a formula. This is just a number that I hard input in. But I know for a fact that this is a formula, right? So I want to know what that formula is without being on that number. I can just go again, formula, text, and then go to that cell, and now I have the formula. So I could do it. Really, I could like drag this down, and then now I have all the formulas for these cells right here. So again, I can keep track of what is connected to what. It's probably easier to do the arrows, but this is a really good way to check your formulas, especially if you are following the instructions from the book. So those are two good ideas of how to keep track of your cells. And remember, you need to do this more than ever in these 4 models, because I guarantee some of you will come and ask me why their numbers are not coming right, and it's going to be because you're referring to the wrong cells. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Thank you.